Give us your outlook from Health Beacon and you know, as an environmentalist yourself, what you think this audience need to know.
On sustainability. So first, I want to say two things. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And also, from sitting over here, I could see Michelle's slides, and they're fantastic. So you should enjoy that. So for those that don't know Health Beacon, we are a health technology company that makes smart tools for managing medication. And in particular, we make a smart Sharps bin, where we help patients that take their injectable medication at home to deal with their schedule, to deal with their adherence to medication, and to deal with their waste in a more sustainable way. What we've done is we have built a lab that was recently EPA approved so that we can take their waste out of their bin when it's full. We can bring it back to our lab. We can de-lid their Sharps bin, tip out the waste, sterilize that bin, and put it back into use, back into production. So for me personally, from a Health Beacon perspective, sustainability is about the actual action that you can take as opposed to just the promises. So you hear a lot of promises out there right now. Oh, we're going to cut our carbon in half by 2030. We're going to be net zero by this time or that time. For me, I think it's really important that we understand that actual tangible action needs to be taken, and then we need to be able to record it. We need to be able to take that data and make something out of it and give that to our stakeholders and make that our public face so that we can really understand what's happening under the hood.
So, because there is a lot of greenwashing out there. So for you, it's making disposable reusable. Is that it, in terms of injections?
Yes, absolutely correct. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of your understanding of where the health tech sector is at, do you think this is part of their agenda now in terms of design and engineering and so on? And because we heard whether it'll fit into the procurement criteria this morning.
Sure. I think that it's starting to become part of the conversation. The people that I talk to are starting to understand that obviously we have to understand regulation around medical devices, and we have to understand compliance issues. But the reality is we all have to live on this planet, and so I feel like there are quite a lot of people that are starting to put that into their programs and really think about this. Roisin's a good example.
Yeah, Roisin, okay, tell us the Trimedica story, because you're the founder.
Yeah. Hi everybody, my name is Roisin Malloy. So we manufacture a non-contact thermometer. I'm sure many of you have seen them over COVID at airports and so on. Ours is different because A, it's accurate, and B, it is very robust for hospital use. So we've been selling this into hospitals in 21 countries since about 2017. The HSE we were working with prior to COVID, but really where we came from when we were looking at our device was there's a lot of talk that is about how do we reuse plastics, how do we recycle stuff. Our sort of take on this is, well, why put it into the system in the first place? Okay, and this is really where Martin Curley's Stay Left, Shift Left and the 10X comes into it, where thinking about what innovations are out there that doesn't help us keep doing the same thing and managing the waste burden, but what helps us stop putting it into the system. And obviously there's certain procedures and so on that are going to need plastics, but what we do is we take plastics out of thermometry. And I don't know how many of you have seen it, but a lot of the tenders and so on that we look at and we work through, about 97% of the cost of thermometry for hospitals and those tenders is plastic. And that's what we remove from the system as such. So hospitals, we've shown there's a few things here. There is economic sustainability, so no plastics, no costs, giving the nurse time back because she doesn't have to look for them or dispose of them. Also the environmental sustainability, no plastics, no waste, and nothing thereafter. One of the things we've also heard, Michelle mentioned about the NHS and their targets. We, as I say, we sell into the NHS. We're based in Belfast, but we sell internationally. But they now have, some of the hospitals are talking about the burden to produce recycling facilities for these plastics under the green plans that are being produced by the different hospital trusts. So this is creating an extra burden or an extra requirement for them to recycle. So once again, from our point of view, we call them non-waste generating devices, and that's what we focus on. We build a lot of technology into the device, which is a low energy device, so 2 AAA batteries is good for about 2 years use of one of our thermometers. And lots of other things, our packaging's all recyclable, so it's about going to the root source of the cause of the waste, and seeing if innovation can actually help change the picture and the landscape completely, and that's what we do.
And please do, Slido, get in your questions on this topic of sustainability. Do you see a wider application of the particular raw core technology you're using to other diagnostic services?
Yeah, we at the minute supply into hospitals and clinics. What we've been asked for is outreach from hospitals into the telehealth arena, so where patients are sent home from hospital. We had a request from a hospital in the UK who had sent, so the 2 patient cohorts they were targeting for getting hospital beds back were the mental health patients and the geriatric patients. And they were sending geriatric patients home with thermometers, with consumables that they had to have supplied to them, use. I don't know if you've ever used a tympanic thermometer. It's not that straightforward, and for my granny, I'm sure she couldn't do it. And then there's the burden of disposing of that. So once again, this feeds into the sort of outreach from the hospital and this whole sort of patient management at home. Also, from the point of view of your vitals monitors in hospitals as well, we are developing a connected version of our device. So our device will be Bluetooth enabled, can be Bluetooth, chip, Wi-Fi, whatever. You literally scan the patient's forehead, and all the patient information and data will go into the EMR or onto the vitals unit. So once again, this is taking paper out of thermometry and getting to that paperless situation that John had talked about earlier.
Okay. Michelle, from your journey over the past year, if I use the analogy of agriculture, we have to reduce the emissions by 30%. All the experts say that 50% can be improved by improved, smarter farm practices, genetics, feed additives, less methane, different application of chemical fertilizers, using different types of green waste. So half of the thing can be met by easy wins. The other half might meant curbing production of livestock, you know what I mean, actually cutting output and incomes. Are there any easy wins for the health sector, do you think?
Yeah, so before I get into the health sector, using your analogy there, so nitrogen fertilizers, urea, right? So we've got a population on the planet of however many it is.
5 billion?
No,
is it?
10 billion,
10
more than
billion,
12
right.
billion.
Nearly there.
I can't remember, right? But 50% of them could not exist without the nitrogen fertilizers that come from petrochemicals. So in actual fact, if you flip your argument on its head, you know, this reliance we have to feed our population using petrochemical derivatives can't be immediately solved, you know. And what you start to learn is everything can't be immediately solved. So back to your question, which is what are the easy wins? Well, it's quite interesting because I chair the group at ABHI on sustainability, and one of my colleagues chairs the group on the commercial policy group, and he rang me up one day and he went, Michelle, I've been thinking about your sustainability stuff, and I've told all of our production they're to stop putting the tubes into plastic bags, because we don't need the plastic bags, they just need a clip to hold them together. They don't need to be in a bag. I don't know why we're sending them out in a bag. So that's 1 million bags I've just stopped overnight, right? And I was like, okay, well done. But when you start to, this is why I wanted to talk about carbon literacy and knowing how to look at something and what sustainable means and what it doesn't mean. Because when you start to look at what you're all doing with that sustainable focus, you'll start to see the easy wins and the quick wins, and you'll also start to appreciate the things that aren't very easy and that are going to require remanufacture, and you know, who's going to do that straight away? That's years and years. And same with packaging, same with labeling, same with all of these different things that take a very, very long time. I think what we might find is that regulation helps us a bit as the burning platform becomes more and more burning. So as it stops being, I'm worried about this individual and making things the most 100%, million% safe I can possibly make it for them, and it starts being about the population and making sure it can survive. Because right now, what's happening is companies and governments are being sued by people for not meeting their carbon reduction targets, for not meeting their net zero, for not meeting what they've said they're going to do, because that's all of, everyone under my age's future down the pan, right? And so that's why I mentioned the film Don't Look Up, because this is existential. Right now in India, they've got 50 degrees every day. This is a once in 100-year thing that happened before the monsoon. It's happening every year. The last 10 years, 9 of them were the hottest on record. It's not an imaginary thing. It's a thing that's happening, and it'll affect everybody. And we know things affect everybody because of Ukraine. The minute something happens in one place that's really bad, it affects everybody. People have to move away. The whole infrastructure changes of the world, and we're all suffering from it right now. So, there are some easy wins.
In cardiac devices, any scope there?
Implantable, the easy wins for that is making sure our manufacturing plants are, the greenest they can be, right? And also thinking about our supply chains and our supply networks and making those the greenest they can be. And possibly we need to work with our customers to stop them being reliant on this, we need this tomorrow stuff, right? We've just put an order in at 3 o'clock and we want it in the morning. Well, guess what? That's all going to be flown in. But if you waited for 48 hours, it's going to come in on road. Massively reduces your carbon emissions. So it's a feedback loop. We've got to start getting ourselves ready to challenge our customers and challenge our owners of our companies and challenge everybody in the system to think sustainably. And then we might get somewhere as a quick win, I suppose, as you put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some questions open to any of you. Are any hospital IV fluids, drugs, recycled in Ireland? It does happen elsewhere.
No idea.
Sorry,
Right.
don't know.
Sorry,
Okay.
not my area of expertise.
Reuse of devices requires recertification to CE standards. Crutches, walking frames, for example. How do we deal with the compliance issue?
Well, I think that, what we're talking about here is that at the moment, regulation is focusing on one thing, is what I've just mentioned, isn't it? And whereas the reality of what we've got to do might be a slightly different thing. And so we have to meet the regulations. You can't just go around them, but regulations will change to meet the emergency as it becomes more emergency-like.
Okay. I don't know if this is a point or rather than a question. Developed countries like UK, USA, France already destroyed the nature in the last 50 years by burning coal, and they're shifting their manufacturing industry to developing countries, blaming only developing countries and talking about only sustainability, but not taking any responsibility. Is there, this area is all riddled with whataboutery and denial, isn't it?
Yeah, but what I do think is that there's huge opportunities here for countries and places to take the lead and companies to take the lead on this. And so developing nations can be uber super sustainable. Costa Rica has made itself, a paragon of virtue when it comes to sustainability. We have manufacturing sites in Costa Rica. We never worry about any of our ISO certificates or any of where our energies come from. It's all amazing, right? But nevertheless, in 2015, a massive hurricane caused by global warming, caused a lot of problems in Costa Rica for anyone that manufactured there. And what you'll start to see with your companies is that the investors and the finance systems, and I predict this happening pretty quick, this next 12 months, they're going to see risk everywhere. Risk from climate, the impact of all these different extreme weather events, and risk from stranded assets, etc. So to answer the question, I think there's an opportunity for all nations to become green entrepreneurs and green leading.
Yes, Marion?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add to that. I think that actually you can go even a step further and say now is the moment to lean in. We really are at an inflection point on the planet at this moment. If we look at what we're trying to accomplish in the next 8 years, and so I think that it's incumbent upon everybody as individuals, as corporations, as an SME, as a government, that we all really try and take action and that we have more power together, right? And so if you look at organizations like Irish Doctors for the Environment or Climate Law, I think that there's a place for HealthTech to come together and say, we want to talk to each other about how we can, as a community and as a group, really make an impact, really have a difference and have a voice. I think that there is a space to lean into this at this time and not just say, well, the government will handle it or the NGOs or, you know, I'm going to, you know, vote and that's going to be the end of it. I think that we can make a difference.
And Ivan, can I just add, one of the things I suppose it's thought of when we're looking at sustainability and bringing in sustainable measures, that we're taking something else away. So if I just take the analogy of the plastic caps that's used for current hospital thermometers, every plastic cap that then is used is specifically contaminated because it's been used by a patient. Therefore, every time you produce that creates another source of infection. So actually by introducing plastic removal in that situation adds to this value-based healthcare that we've talked about in the other sessions, and therefore the procurement system should be looking at that from the point of view of how does it benefit not just cost savings, but then the environmental piece and all the other pieces. And that's important post-COVID.
Can I ask you, because you're based in Belfast, you deal with both the NHS and the HSE, would you compare and contrast the sustainability agenda between the NHS and HSE?
Well, I think they're taking it from two different angles from what I can see. So as Michelle pointed out, in the NHS, they have a strategy and a plan and targets to, to this circular piece and to reduce and so on. I think the HSE, we work closely with the Living Labs team on the thermometry piece. And where they've seen it differently is they have thought, how do we bring innovation in to take the plastic out of the system? Or to take, the problem away. And that's really they're going back to the root cause of the issue rather than managing the waste burden on the other end. So that's where, when I look at sustainability from our point of view as a company, that's where they're looking at it a little bit differently.
Okay.
And going back to that value-based procurement piece, we know how hard it's been for us all to introduce this. The reason I got into this sustainability thing was because I was a health economist and I realised instead of putting pounds or euros or dollars into my cost consequence analysis, I was going to put kilograms of carbon dioxide, and it was the same thing. And the point I'm making is that a short patient pathway, a quality outcome, is a sustainable outcome. So this isn't all doom and gloom for us doing, procedures that are day stays rather than 4-day stay, that are 1 hour surgery rather than 4 hour surgery. These are all things that you need to be able to understand, have an impact, and talk about, and push back on, some of the stuff that, I don't want to use this thing because it's plastic and it's got this on it. Okay, but it's just saved 4 nights of that patient in hospital. That's between 3 and 13 kilograms of waste every night they're in there. It's just saved 2 hours of surgery. Well, that's 60 kilograms of waste, and you're worried about your one thing, right? So I call it the world's biggest onion, and it is the world's biggest onion, and every time you peel back a layer, there's something else to consider. But think about value principles and you'll get sustainable principles.
All right. I'm going to read a quote here, which is, again, a bit of a comment. It's a bit of an Irishism. Considering we won't take cars off the road, we won't take cows out of the field, and we won't take the turf out of the fire, what chance have we of taking implants and medical devices back out of humans? We should just tax the medical industry. Well, my experience is that a lot of industries have actually become, in terms of marketing, carbon neutral by simply buying carbon credits. And I could see a quite sophisticated market developing at €90 a tonne to buy a tonne of CO2, and that could well be for certain industries, notwithstanding the excellent work that needs to be done in developing new practices. So look, I tell you what, I have a lemon for you now that you've digested the onion. Please show your appreciation for Michelle Sullivan of Boston Scientific, Roisin Malloy of Trimedica, and Marion Briggs of Health Beacon.